afternoon. On behalf of SAARC Cultural Centre, I welcome you all to the fifth session of the SAARC Talk Series 2025. This is Dr. Veena Gandhi Deori, PhD Director Research. This afternoon, we have an eminent speaker, Ms. Maryam Thawfeega. Ms. Maryam has done her bachelor's and master's in English language. She has been in the field of teaching preschool, primary school, and middle school students for over 40 years in Maldives as well as abroad. Presently, she is the Vice President of Language Committee, Dhivehi Academy, and also a Fellow at Maldives National College of Heritage Ministry of Dhivehi Language, Culture and Heritage. Welcome, Ms. Maryam. Ms. Maryam is going to share her insights, which is based on her experience of working for over 40 years. And the topic that she's going to talk on is literature as a cultural heritage, stories Maldivian children are told. So thank you very much, Madam Maryam. Now I humbly request you to proceed with your lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Veena, and thank you, SAARC Cultural Centre. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this session. As introduced, I'm Maryam Thawfeega. All my friends actually call me Thaw, but it's okay. My first name is Maryam, so Maryam is also okay. Today, I'm going to actually have a look at oral tradition as part of cultural heritage. This is part of a literature. I hope you can actually see my presentation. On the right-hand side, you should be able to see a map of the Maldives. If you really look at the shape of it, you can see that it looks like a garland. So Maldives is actually known as the garland in the Indian Ocean. Our atolls are arranged in such a way that it looks like a garland. Actually, the name Maldives comes from Sanskrit, and in terms of the Mal part is Mala, which is garland in Sanskrit, and Dipa, which is island, so a garland of islands. We are located in the southwest of India and Sri Lanka, so we're very close by. Our language is Dhivehi, and we are blessed with dialects of the language as well. So, especially in the southern parts of the Maldives, the dialects are quite a bit different from the standard Dhivehi. We are also blessed with the script. We have our own script to our language, so that is very nice. Another thing that is quite unique, I suppose, in this region to the Maldives is that we have one language and one religion. So the whole of the population speak the same language, and we all are in the same faith. So that is a wonderful thing in terms of peacekeeping. I'm going to show you now a little bit of information about the Maldives. Each island, so on this map, you can see there are so many islands. I think we have over 1,000 islands, but we only inhabit around 190 to 200 at the most, I think. And each island has a very small population. But because we are small communities, at the heart of community, we have unity. Even from our forefathers' time and now, unity is really at the heart of the community. If we look at traditionally how families were, we could say that traditionally the fathers were normally out doing their work, fishing or other work, but then they got home after sunset and then families will be together. This would be the time when most of the stories are being told. However, things are changing with the times because other influences are obviously coming into it. But let's have a look at oral tradition. Now, in the Maldives, although we all speak the same language, Dhivehi, we are also, almost everybody is fluent in English as well, because from the 1960s, we've had in schools as a medium of instruction English, and we have had to learn English throughout our lives. So almost everybody in the Maldives does speak English. And Dhivehi, actually, our own language, Dhivehi, has been the primary language in oral tradition. So most of the stories have been told in Dhivehi. And among these stories, we have legends, we have folklore, we also have poetry and historical stories that children get told as they are growing up. And then the historical stories that are told are often about Maldivian heroes who actually saved the country from foreign forces, because in olden days, Maldives was very kind of a hotspot for people to actually want to be in this region. So Maldives actually had a lot of invading happening. In our legends and folklore, a lot of mythical sea creatures and demons feature. Because this is because we are surrounded by sea, and so sea actually happens to be part of our daily life. So we have stories that would feature sea creatures, or creatures that come up from the sea, which don't actually probably even live in the sea. And many of these stories actually carry moral messages and lessons to be learned for life. Now, the role of oral tradition from olden times, the purpose was for moral instruction and to teach values to younger generations, and also to teach principles. But it was also a basis for communal bonding, because during this time, people would get together and listen to the stories. And any storyteller would have quite a nice audience. And this is also seen as part of spending quality time with family, and even with the immediate community. By that, I mean, sometimes if somebody starts telling a story, children from the neighborhood might come and join to listen as well. So it's very much a communal thing. It happened to be a communal thing. Sometimes, especially at sea, I would say it serves as a source of entertainment as well. I mean, oral story tradition serves as a source of entertainment. I would say oral tradition, although it's fading now, it matters because it actually preserves cultural identity. It promotes history and also values and fosters communal bond. Let's have a look. I would like to draw your attention now to the pictures I'm sharing now. If you have a look at the picture at the top, you can see a man lying down there and some boys sitting on this um, structure there, the furniture, so to speak, is actually called a holuashi. It's made from stilt roots of the screw pine plant, and it's structured as like a bed or something like this. People use it to sit on it and share their stories from the day, to relax also. And sometimes children actually spend their time sitting there and talking about their happenings in the day. So it is a very community-oriented space. It's also built normally near the coast, so you can get the breeze from the sea in it as well when you're sitting there. So it's quite a cool place to be. And then at the bottom, the picture at the bottom shows a traditional house. And if you look at where the people are sitting, you can see some netting, seats with netting, and these are called jolly. And when you have a set of jolly side by side, like you can see in this picture, it's called a jolly fati. And this would be a place where most people come and sit to relax and also to share stories, sometimes to do their work as well. So, having introduced those pictures, let me now talk about the settings for oral tradition or for the stories to take place. As I've said, Holuashi is one of the places, and Jolifati outside the home is another. And for family gatherings, sometimes it is in their living rooms. And in olden days, because we didn't have electricity, it would be lamplit living rooms, so quite dim light, quite a soothing environment, I would say. And then the settings will also be for on the boats when they're at sea. So sometimes when they're fishing, they might have time to sit down and chat or relate stories to each other, but mostly these stories happen at sea when they are traveling from one island to the other, which by boat in those days, especially because we rely on the wind in the sails. So we didn't have engines at that time. So sometimes the sea voyages might take from one island to the other hours, sometimes days. So it actually gives a lot of time for people to share their stories with each other. Now, if you look at these pictures, you can see on the right-hand side, it is a boat, which is the kind of doni. We call it doni in our language, which is the word for boat, which is a huge feature in our stories because it's also the mode of transport by sea that we used to have. Now we fly from one country to from one island to the other. We can fly, but in those days it was always dhoni. And this particular dhoni that you can see feature in one of the stories that I'm going to include in this presentation. So I thought I would show you a picture of it. If you look at the next picture, I think this is a father with his two sons, and at the background you can see the daughter in her school uniform, I think. And if you can see what the boys have in their hands, it's called bodu beru, which if we translate into English, literally will be big drum. So these are featured in our oral tradition quite often in song form. So let us see what I have. The stories would be, as I said before, historical tales, fables, legends, and folklore. And then we have poems, which is also a part of our oral tradition, which actually includes songs and ravaru, which is a very unique form of poetry in the Maldives. And then we have chants, amba, farihi, these kind of things, and boduberu songs. So these are different forms of oral tradition. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the story that almost every child in the Maldives must have heard as they were growing up in the Maldives. Because this is the story about how Maldives became Muslims. And in previous times, before we became a Muslim nation, we actually there were, I think Buddhism was the religion in the country. But then we embraced Islam, and this is how the story goes. If you look at the picture, you can see that there is a sea monster. As our stories go, quite often it will be sea monsters. But this particular sea monster actually has a name, and that name is Rannamari, so which is a sea demon. So the story goes that every month in those olden days, every month a virgin girl is supposed to be, so they draw lots to choose the girl. And that virgin girl is supposed to be taken to a temple by the coast. And then this sea monster, the Rannamari, will come, and in the morning when the king and courtiers come to fetch the girl, they will find the girl ruined and dead. So this was going on for quite a while in the country. And then it so happened that one day that there was this gentleman come from Morocco. His name was Abul Barakat, and he one day walked around the island, and when he came home, he was staying with this family. When he came home, everybody in the family, the woman in the family, the girl, everybody was crying. And he asked about why they were crying and found out that by lots, it was the daughter of the house who had been drawn to feature that night in the temple, which actually meant that she was going to die. So they were crying about it. And then this gentleman says to them, don't worry, you stay, I will go in your place and let's see what happens. So he saved the girl and he went apparently and to the temple, and he was there. Now this gentleman is happened to be a gentleman who had memorized the Holy Quran. So which means that he was kind of a holy man. And he went there and he started reciting the Quran. So then the monster, the sea monster came, the Rannamari came, found the man reciting the Quran, was so scared and ran away. This is how the story goes. And the next morning, when the king and courtiers came to fetch the girl to see what happened to the girl, they found this man, and he was reciting the Quran. And he was alive, so they were really alarmed and shocked, and they wanted to know what happened. And he says to them that the demon actually came, but was scared because he was reciting the Quran and fled. But before it started fleeing, he made sure that it promised never to come back to this island anymore. And so the king wanted him to stay and save the country. But then the Abu Barakat says, okay, I have a condition, which is for you to convert to Islam, because if you become Muslims, then this sea monster will not trouble you anymore. And so the king then embraced Islam. And over the years, I think it took many years for the whole country, because as you saw, we are scattered all over the place. So it took a while for the whole country to become Islam. But apparently, this is how the Maldives became Muslim. Now, if we are talking about the country now, we are 100% Muslim population. We are a small population, but everybody is a Muslim. And then our Maldivian forefathers and parents today even want the country to remain Muslim, because this is how we believe that we can actually be saved for years to come. Now I'm going to turn my story into a story from history. Interestingly, last Sunday this week actually, was it? We actually celebrated the anniversary of this, which is our national day, is marked based on this particular incident that I'm going to tell you about now. This is the story of Bodu Takurufano. Now, if I'm going to translate this name to you, Bodu actually means big or great in this instance. And Takurufano is a name of stature, I would say, given to people who have a high social standing in the community. So he became Bodu Takurufano, which meant he was a great man. And his name is Muhammad Takurufan, and he lived in the 16th century from 1535 to 1585. And his island was Utimu in Ha Alif Atoll, which is in the northern part of the Maldives. And when he was growing up, Utimu, by the way, is a beautiful island, and it has a huge, beautiful beach where Muhammad Takurfan actually spent a lot of his childhood there on the beach, on the sands. And during that time, his favorite pastime was actually catching birds, seabirds that lived near the coast and flew near the coast. And he would lay traps for them and he would catch them. This was his favorite pastime. And he spent days and the whole day, didn't even go home sometimes for food. And he would just spend his time there. But interestingly, every time one of the birds got caught in the traps that he laid, he would hold the bird in his hand and talk to the bird. He would say to them, "Why have you not used your brain? Why have you let yourself get caught? You should not." So he would let them go, and then he would say to them, "Don't come back. Don't let yourself be caught in my traps." This is interesting because it is kind of a foreshadowing for what is to come later on in his life. Because independence was something that he valued even from a childhood times. So because he was spending a lot of time outside of his home, he was becoming kind of a lad not really obeying his parents and being at home. So he was sent away to do studies to India, I think. And during the studies, he also got the chance to become really exceptional in his skills in martial arts. He was taught by an expert in this field. Now, before I go on to the next part of the story, I would like to draw your attention to the picture that you see in this slide. And this is Bodutokurufanu's palace, actually. It is now a place of, I think, that features in UNESCO heritage. This is where he grew up, and this has been kind of preserved. And now people who go onto the island can go and have a look at it. It's a part of our heritage now. And if you look at my slide now, you can see that we had Portuguese rule in our country from 1558 to 1573. So that's the story that I'm going to tell you about Boruta Kurfan, because that's what he's famous for. He's the hero of the nation, really. It is said in many books and stories that people have told that when the Portuguese ruled the Maldives, it was really a tyrannical rule. They were really cruel to the Maldivian population. And they forced people to actually do non-religious things that were against our faith. And so this became a really big thing for Muhammad Takurfan, Bodu Takurfan. And so he and his brothers decided, no, we need to do something about this. We need to find a way to get rid of this rule that is going on in our country, because it was so cruel as well. And so he and his two brothers, they built this boat, which was called Karuo Fummi. And it had sails that were made from palm fronds. And it is said to be one of the speediest boats of that time, so much faster speed than other boats of that time. And so Boruta Kurfano, he wanted to get rid of this Portuguese rule and get the country back to the Maldivians. So on the night, he decided to perform this prayer, which is called istikhara. And this is a prayer, if you have a dilemma on your hands and you want to get some guidance from above, you would do 2 rakah of this prayer and then ask God, pray to God to give you a way to make a decision. And then anytime you have a difficult decision to be made, if you perform this prayer, you will be enlightened. So this is what Boruta Kurfan did. And the decision he took was, we need to go to war. We need to wage war against this tyrannical rule. So along with his brothers, he went to Minicoy, which is part of India, and found refuge for their wives and children there, so they can stay safe. And then the 3 brothers also found another 2 Maldivians who were at that point in Minicoy, and who were really great with their lance skills. So this weapon was their choice weapon, so to speak. And they had just returned from Hajj pilgrimage, which is a sacred religious performance. And so with these 2 men from the Maldives who had returned from Hajj, the 3 brothers and another man, they waged war against the foreign power in the country. And the story about Boruta Kurfano is really about how he gained independence from the tyrannical rule of the Portuguese. Now, when they were fighting, what they did was, at night, when darkness fell, they would then get onto the islands and they would slay any foreigners that they found. But during the daytime, they would go at sea, they will stay at sea, they would not be found. But on one of these voyages, on one of these trips, actually, Ali Takurfan, who is Bodu Takurfanu's oldest brother, he stayed with one of his wives, and he was discovered that next day by the foreigners, and they slayed him. They beheaded him, actually, and sent his head to Male, to Andiri Andiri, who was the foreign ruler at that point. The Muslims in Takandu, which is the island he was in, he was slayed. And the Muslims in Takandu then buried his body in Takandu, but his head, because it was taken to Male, it was buried on Funadu, which is an island near Male, the capital. So to wage this war, Boruta Kurfan also got assistance from Kannano Ali Raja, and with a group of Malabari soldiers, they fought the battle. But the most important thing about the way they fought, because they didn't have too many, grenades or things like this, but the essential, really way that they tackled this was really the plan that they had. So they would make sure that we have a prayer at nighttime, around 2:30 in the morning. This prayer, so the foreigners who were occupying the country would go to bed after the prayer. So what the Bodhisattva and his warriors did was they got the imam to make the prayer early, so that they would go to bed, the foreigners would go to bed early. And when they went to bed early, this is when the Bodhisattva and his warriors came and defeated the oppressors. And then, because the country was freed from foreign rule, the people of Maldives requested him to be their king. And so he ruled the country from 1573 until 1585, which was for 12 years. And to this day, we mark our national day to celebrate the independence that he regained to the country from Portuguese rule. Now, if we look at the lessons that we learn from this story, we could say that love for the nation and religion is the main thing. And then also it teaches bravery, and it inspires people to lead and to put country first and religion first, and because these are important parts of our heritage and our culture. It also inculcates the importance of our identity, national identity. It gives us unity and freedom from oppressive rule, from colonial rule. It also teaches that we need to protect our faith and our culture, because they are very important parts of our identity. Now I am going to go into folklore, which, and I've featured some stories. I'm not going to tell them in detail. I'm going to just give you the gist of it, of those stories. But before I go into that, let's have a look at this picture that we have here. This is a new house though, but this actually depicts how our houses used to be in the islands. And we made our houses with wood and coconut thatch. And houses had this jolifati outside their house. And if you look at the right-hand side, you can see what we might call an ashi. Ashi actually means a place for you to sit or lie down or sit and work. So many of the Maldivian houses would have these featuring in their homes. So I thought I would draw your attention to that picture. Now, the stories that I'm going to feature in this presentation is Ambafulai Dambafuru. This is actually a story about two friends. And then I will feature Makana Kala. Makana is the word for crane in our language. And then I have Findana and Bondana, which I wouldn't go into many details of the story, but they have similar stories going through them. And then we have Angagada Mituru, Makumbe, and Debulaluge Araro. These are the stories that I actually, when I was preparing for this talk, I did a very small, tiny research with family and friends, really. And I found these were the stories that were common among what these people heard when they were growing up. And so did I. So it's kind of almost every Maldivian, I think, have heard these stories. Now, this is the story of Ambafula Dambafula. These two people were very close friends. And one day they went to pluck sea almonds. On the bottom right-hand corner, you can see the fruit on the tree. And this is a plant, I think, featured in nearby places like India, Sri Lanka. And these friends, one of the friends stayed on the ground, and the other friend climbed the tree to pick the fruit. And what happened was it became a stormy day, and then the guy on the tree actually fell in the wind and got stuck in an opening at the bottom of the tree. And so the friend who was on the ground tried to take him out of this situation, but he couldn't. So then he goes and looking for help to free his friend from the situation he was in. So he goes to one person, he asks this person if you can come and help. The person says, oh, I'm busy, I cannot go at this point. And then he goes to another friend, and he goes to another person, and so on. That is how it goes. Everybody was busy with their work, but then finally he found somebody to come and help free his friend from the situation he was in. Now, the story actually teaches lessons that when you have a friend in need, you must do everything you can to help them. And also the other thing that you learn is that the first hurdle isn't where to quit, to keep going, and you will finally find some way to actually succeed in your endeavors. So do not quit at the first hurdle, is the story. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about this Makanakalo story. So the crane. This is a kind of a silly story, but at the same time, it has value in terms of the language, actually, I would say, for children when they're listening to the story. So the story goes like this. There was a crane walking down the beach, and then he puts a dropping on the beach near near the shore, actually, where the waves would come in. So he goes for a walk after this and comes back looking for his dropping. And then he is told, the waves tell him, "We washed it off." And then he says, "No, that's not fair. It's my dropping. You should give me a prize for that, for that, because you took my thing." And then they say, "We don't have your dropping, so we will give you 2 waves." So he was given 2 waves. He goes with the 2 waves and he keeps those 2 waves near a place where some people were trying to kind of release their dhoni or their boat that had come aground. And then he goes off for a walk. And when he comes, he finds that his waves are gone. So he says, "Where are my waves?" And then he was told, "We used your waves to rescue our dhoni, our boat." And so he says, "But you have to pay me for that." And so they say, "Okay, we can't give you back the waves, so we will give you 2 fish from where they were fishing." So he takes the 2 fish and he goes and keeps them at the place where near a kitchen where people were making bokiba, which is like a fish cake. And then he goes off again and he walks around and comes back to receive his bokiba. But then to receive his fish, and then he was told, "We made bokiba out of it." And then he says, "You must pay me for it." And so he was given 2 bokiba, which he again takes and leaves near some people who are taking a break from work. He goes walking, comes back to find his bokiba was gone, and then he was given 2 drums. And he goes on a plant, a coconut palm, and he starts beating his drum and singing a sad song, which is where he falls down and dies. So it's a very horrible ending in this story, but there are lessons to be learned from here as well. So one of the lessons is you have to use common sense in doing things. Don't leave your bokiba near a set of people who are hungry and taking their break from work, kind of thing. And also it teaches you about that if you don't use your brain wisely, you might actually end up in trouble. Now, these 2 stories about the 2 friends and about this Makanakalo, the crane, they have a similar pattern, and many children's stories have this repetitive pattern, which makes it easier for the kids to actually remember the story. Now I'm going to just highlight some of the stories that we have been told as we grew up. So Findana and Bondana, these are 2 birds who were friends, and they also the story has one friend helps the other, but he didn't. The friend who got help didn't acknowledge the help, and so he gets into trouble. That sort of thing. And then you have the story of Angagada Mituru. Actually translated, Angagada Mituru actually means a talkative friend. And these 2 friends, Angagada Mituru and Angamadu Mituru, the non-talkative friend, these 2 were friends and they would do things together. So this one night, they eat a sweet made of millet, which is called mafung in our language. And then the next morning when they woke up, Angagada Mituru found, so the talkative friend found that his non-talkative friend had very beautiful set of teeth, which he didn't have yesterday. So he says, "How did you get your teeth?" And then he says to his friend, "Oh, last night after we ate the mafu, which is the millet sweet, I fell asleep on the holuashi. And then in the middle of the night came Santi Mariam, which was a demon or a monster who actually carries a sack of teeth with her. And so she found that I hadn't brushed my teeth. So she replaced my teeth with beautiful teeth. That's how I got these beautiful teeth." And so the next day, Angagada Mithuru, the talkative friend, also does the same thing, eats the mafu and goes to sleep on the Horwashi. And Santi Mariamu, with her bag of teeth, comes along and tries to replace the teeth because he didn't brush his teeth. But because Angagada Mithuru, being the talkative person, he wakes up and he says, "Oh, you must give me teeth nicer than my friend's teeth." And then Santi Mariamu got so scared that she threw the bag of teeth at him and left and fled. So the next morning, Angamandu Mithuru, the non-talkative friend, found that his friend had got teeth all over his mouth, as you can see in the picture. I got a good picture, I think, there. Anyway, the next story is about Makumbe, which is also a horrible kind of story. This is about a gluttonous father who had 7 children, and he would always eat all the food and give just a little morsel to his children. But then when the children grew up, he would visit each child's house and eat at each child's house. Although I say child, at this point they are grown up. So he would eat it at everybody's house, and his stomach blew up, really big. And then he fell asleep under a tree, and the wind blew a strand of coconut husk, just a string. And this actually came and landed on his stomach, and his stomach burst because it was really full of food. And that is how he dies. So that's another horrible ending story. And then we have, I think you can hear the call for prayer because there's a mosque right outside here. Sorry about that. Now I'm going to tell you about the 2 cats who argued. They fought about food again. But this story, I don't think is a Maldivian story, but it does get told to Maldivian kids. And this is a story about 2 cats who found a cake, Bokiba in our case, and they each got a bit of the cake and started eating it. As they were eating, one cat looks at the other cat's piece of cake and found that his piece was bigger. And so said, "You should give part of your piece because my piece is smaller than yours." And he says, "No, this is mine. It's not fair to give it to you." So they found a monkey who comes along with scales, weighing scales, and says, "Okay, let me sort it out for you." So he takes a bite of the bigger piece and puts it in the scale, and then the other piece is bigger now. So he takes a bite off of it, and he goes on like this until he has eaten the whole cake for himself. So these are the stories that I have featured in this. And these stories actually teach you the importance of moderation. When you are eating, moderation. When you are doing something, be at moderation. And also the joy of sharing. It's much better if you shared your food with each other. If you shared, it's much better. So, and also food actually need to be enjoyed. If you look at the picture that I have got here, we do enjoy our food. That picture at on the left-hand side is actually, not left-hand side, left picture, actually, is a picture of when we get together as a community in the islands. They have what we call a feast. And there's food of every kind brought to you, and you take a small piece of it, and the whole community feeds with this food. So it is actually good to share food, is what it tells you. And then it also tells you that if you overindulgent, then it can become harmful to you, and that greed can put you in trouble. So these are the folk tales that we grew up listening to. Now, obviously, because an island nation, we have the sea around us, we do have stories of sea creatures. And so most of our myths actually have monsters and sea creatures in our stories. I'm going to just highlight a few for you. And one of the stories is Safarukadda. Another one is Fulutigu Handi. I'll explain that to you in a minute. Handigandu Donkaman, and then I have Mamali that. I'm just going to tell you the 3 stories that I have pictures featured here. So the one in the middle with the well and the girls is Safarukadda. So this was a sea monster that comes with her daughters, 7 daughters, every month during full moon. And by this time, the islanders will be asleep in their beds. So Safarkada's daughters apparently do not clean themselves. So every month, they clean themselves once a month. They come onto the island, they find a well, and all the girls bathe there. And then they would leave a big mess when the islanders awoke, they will find a big mess left at their well. So this is how the story goes. And then one particular night, Safarkaida came with her 7 daughters. But one of the daughters, because when they come, they are bejeweled, they wear jewels from the sea. And one of the daughters left her jewels by mistake. And so the next month when they came looking for the jewels. And it so happened that the people from that house had kept the jewels because they found some jewels. They wondered whose they were, so they kept it with them. But then that month when Safarkada came, she and her daughters raided the house and left the house in really a big mess, in ruins actually. And so they fear this Safarkada, the person who comes with, well, not person, monster, who comes with her daughters. On the right-hand side, you have a monster and a woman. The monster, actually, this monster is called Fulu Diguhandi. Now, Fulu is navel. And if your navel is long, Digu means long, it's kind of an umbilical cord. So apparently this monster had a long umbilical cord. And the woman featured in the story is Aminabi. So she goes, in the olden days, we got our drinking water from wells in the mosques. So Aminabi actually goes to the mosque to fetch water with her pot. And then she sees this Fulu Diguhandi, the monster, in the premises of the mosque, playing with the sand. She gets so scared that she threw her pot of water and ran home. And that night, Fulu Diguhandi, the monster, comes and starts shouting around the house. And Aminabi is so scared inside the house. And the monster is saying, "Did you see me? Did you see me? Did you tell the people that you saw me?" And he was shouting like this. And Aminabi was so scared that she didn't even open the door or look outside through a hole. She just stayed at home. And this happened for a couple of times. And at this point, Aminabi's husband was away on his travels. So when he comes back from travels, Aminabi tells him about the incident. So the husband says, "Okay, don't worry about it, but please make some chili paste." So she goes and makes chili paste. That night, when Furudigohandi, the monster, comes and starts chanting, "Did you see me? Did you see me? Did you tell anybody about me?" Aminabi from inside the house goes, "Yes, I saw you." So this made and I told people, and this made the monster very angry. So he found a little hole in the thatch, among the palm fronds of the walls of the house, and he puts his umbilical cord through it and to scare them. And so from inside the house, they pull it all over the place. And then when it came to the end of the navel of the cord, they cut it with a not very sharp knife, blunt knife, and then put the chili paste on it. So the monster felt so hurt and ran away and never came back again. So that's that story. And then I have Handi Ganduvar Donkamana. This is a story about, so when it says Handi, it's a monster. And then Ganduvar is palace. Donkamana is a name given to a woman in the Maldives. So this story is about a supernatural creature, but it comes as a beautiful woman. So this man goes to cut firewood in the woods and sees this beautiful woman. They exchange stories through poetry, Ravaru, and then he decides to marry the woman. And this was really good for him because the woman, since he married the woman, he didn't have to bring in food because the woman would provide the food, and everything was going really well. But then people started kind of gossiping and rumors and stuff, saying that this is actually not a human being, this is a supernatural being, and you should be careful, all kinds of things like this. So this planted a seed of suspicion in the husband's mind, and so he spied on her. And lo and behold, yes, it was true. This was not a real human being, because she would just bend down into the well and retrieve a fish, a big fish out of the well, and she would prepare food from it. So the man got so very scared that he actually got a voodoo man to come and do some voodoo magic, black magic on her. But she found out about it, and um, in some versions of the story, she killed the man. In some versions of the story, they had a family. She said, I'm going to leave you, and I have to have two of our children. We have to equally get our children. And they had five, so they got two each, and the other one was split in the middle, kind of thing. So it's a very horrible story. But then she fled, apparently. In one version, they were all killed. So that's stories of demons, very horrible. Sometimes these stories are not told to children of a younger age, but as children are growing and they become like teenagers or a little bit older, these stories do get told to them. And Maldivians sometimes tell stories to actually make kids in olden days scared, so that they don't spend their nights outside of their homes. Right. Some of the lessons that we could get from these stories are that you must not take what is not yours. So from the Safarukada story, the one of the daughters actually left her jewelry and it was taken. So they got their house ruined. And also the dangers of getting into black magic, about this Handiganduvaru story. And also not to listen to rumors, because if you listen to rumors, it's possible that you start being suspicious about people. And also it teaches what to do if you are faced with a scary situation. Now, another story that I'm going to tell you is called Kullava Falurani. Now, Kullava is the fruit mangrove apple. If you look at the pictures at the bottom, you see this fruit. And this is a plant that grows in marshy areas, and the fruit is really beautiful. It's really good to look at, plus it's really tasty. It's quite a versatile fruit, because it can be eaten raw, it can be made into juice, it can be used in salads. And it's really a lovely fruit. But now the story is about this girl who lived in the marshes and grew up in there, eating this fruit every day. But then it so happened that the king actually saw the girl, found her to be exceptionally beautiful, and so wanted to marry her. So he married her and took her to the palace, and she started living in the palace. And as she was living in the palace, she forgot about her humble beginnings, kind of. And so when a relative came to visit her, she actually made him wait outside for a very long time. And then when he came in, she found that he came with gifts from her island. And the gift was the fruit that she had grown up eating. But then she pretended not to know what this was. She was starting to ask questions like, "What is this? Did you make them? Do they grow on a plant or something? What is this?" And she started kind of being weird about how not knowing that this is the fruit that she grew up eating. So then her relative actually leaves, feeling very sad. Um, because he found that the girl had actually forgotten her beginnings. This story actually teaches you to appreciate your origins and also to treat people with respect, those people that you loved and cared for you. Don't let them stand outside for ages just because now you can. And also another thing is to never let success actually get in the way of kindness. You have to be kind to everybody. So that's that story. Now I'm going to go now into a different type of oral tradition, which is because it's not only limited to speech, it is also it moves. It is also in songs, you know. And if you look at the pictures here, you find the Boduberu that I was talking about earlier. People beat the drums and sing songs, and other people dance to the rhythm of it. And I wanted to put a link to it for you to listen. Maybe I will be able to let you listen to it. Let's see if I can. I'm going to get you to listen to a very short piece of it. So as you heard, they sing in solo and chorus together, but they beat the drum. And the song that you heard had words that said, "We will always be ready to get victory for the nation, and we will be laying down our lives to defend the nation." So this is to say that even in these songs, you actually get to hear people singing about the importance of nation and the importance of having our own independence. Many of these songs actually have messages that are about our national identity, are about our, saving our faith and our country. Now, I'm also, if you can see on my slide, I have here featured a song which says, this is in Dhivehi, okay? Denevada Gannawa Moto Tia Befulun Lubveti Aziz. So this is about a king who ruled. So this is a story, though, a song, a story in a song, let's say. But this is about a king who ruled, but then he was a very humble person, and there came an Eid, a festival celebration, religious festival, and his kids were in like not very flashy clothes. And so his wife says to him, "You are the king. If you ordered to take from the national treasury, you can get money and get them new dresses." And he says to her, "I know I am king, but tomorrow I might die. Then how am I going to answer the questions about being unfaithful to my people?" So the kind of thing. And it's a very interesting song that actually teaches you about using what you have only and not going overboard. And then there's this other song about this another crane who was at the coast, very hungry, wanting to eat, but then only wanted to eat a certain type of fish, and other fish just were around the crane, but he wouldn't eat them. And then finally he ate something that was stale, and he died. Very horrendous story, but that is that story. So these songs actually teach you to appreciate what you have and not to be influenced to covet what others have. And even if you have power, do not abuse it. Remember that there is an afterlife and you will have to answer for your actions. And to appreciate what you can have and be thankful for what you've been blessed with. And also, if you are stubborn and not eat what you are given, you can end up in peril. And then also to be ready to work for the success of the nation and be proud of your country, because one day you will be rewarded for your hard work and efforts. So some of the challenges in today's world, I would say, for oral tradition to continue is modernization and globalization. Because of these things, because of people traveling to one place and the other, and also being able to get information from all over the place at your fingertips. Traditions are fading, and cultural identity, I think, all over the world is kind of on an erosion. And also cultural homogenization, where cultures are overlapping a lot, and it ends in language loss in some cases too. But the narratives from dominant cultures can displace traditional practices and values, which might weaken local cultural identity, which is not great for connection between younger and older generations. Now, what we can do to preserve our cultural identity is to find new avenues, new ways of preserving these, and maybe use media and technology to record, to preserve, to disseminate even traditional old stories. I think this is happening in the Maldives. We now see a lot of videos that are based on these stories on YouTube and other platforms. You can also make these accessible to a younger and a wider audience through technology. And schools could have storytelling projects where people can include traditional stories, which would then mean we can bridge the gaps we have in the generations. So, to end, oral tradition showcases identity, and stories and messages in songs can teach values to the youth. And preserving these ensures relevance for the future. And oral tales are anchored in our identity. We must honor them, we must listen to them, learn, and pass them forward to younger generations. We can adapt them, find ways of adapting them so that they are appealing to the youth. So these are some of the ideas that I think can come from some of the references that I thank you very much, everybody, for listening.
Thank you very much for such an informative lecture. So, as your talk has reaffirmed the importance of stories and how they can foster a sense of belongingness, moral understanding, and instill, as you said, a sense of cultural pride among the growing children. So, as you have shared so many stories from Maldives, these stories are a very important part and parcel of every society in South Asia. These stories are an import. They in South Asia, the stories they represent one of the most vital and enduring forms of intangible cultural heritage. So, be it Panchatantra stories or stories from Jataka, these stories constitute what I feel is that these stories have these are more than simple entertainment for the young minds. As you have shared, that these stories encourage children to think critically, and there is a message about justice, importance of sharing, as you said, sharing of food, justice, truth, ethical behavior, and the kind of the wisdom embedded in these stories. These are as relevant today as it was in the past. So, thank you very much for sharing your stories with us. And now I may open the floor for the audience, the participants, if they have any questions or if they have any comments to make. No, as then I would like to maybe add one point more, because when you were uh, delivering your talk, you actually mentioned that these are not, as I said, these are not kind of just social messages, but these stories are also very important means of language preservation, and also in a way kind of the, I mean, these shared experiences of hearing the same stories in the family from parents, then from the elders in the family. It creates a sort of intergenerational bonds. As you said, there is a space where all the small children come, so where the stories are being narrated. So it's also a sort of community bonding that is happening there.
It does, yes. And
It's
also,
not.
Sabina, sorry to interrupt. Somebody from the audience actually has a comment
Ah,
which
okay, please.
says if those stories are animated, might help to visualize better, which is a very helpful comment I think, because in
Exactly.
today's world,
Yes.
they are very much into more videos and that kind of thing, and animations would really bring these stories to life. So
Yeah.
thank you very much for that comment. I think it is a very useful comment.
Children learn more from with the screens these days. So but then I think it is this traditional way of sharing stories, where all the kind of village elders or community elders will be there, and the small children, they will assemble. And the sharing of stories, I led. We remember, I mean, growing up listening to ghost stories like
Yeah.
that. So, Miss Tho, as you said, your friends call you Tho. So thank you very much for accepting our invitation and speaking at the SAARC Talk Series. Your presence is invaluable and we have learned so much. And I also thank the online participants for being there. So thank you very much.